It's not.
Yeah, but it's stick on with extra.
I know, yeah.
Oh my God.
I will say. Challenging.
No, you're happy. So this no. Very helpful. You would tell them. Good job.
Like, do you even work here anymore? So I didn't set anything up. So sorry.
No, you don't need to. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, your thing is there.
Okay.
For the guitar.
Yeah.
Sorry, I put it in a great spot, not thinking you were gonna be here.
Really fine. I'm usually the one that has to deal with all this, so the fact that
I also reorganized
done it all, it's awesome.
that closet, so it should be easier to get to some things as well.
Here. Did you put it, did you?
I did, yes. Technology is crazy. It's just like a standard outlet. It's not like all that special words. Not really. Like there's a couple things in there that you'll see on the very top of it, but there's nothing.
It's not fun. Curious.
Will you? Okay, so do we need the other mic then, or a different mic? Or can you?
Yeah,
I can set that up. And if you have other stuff.
I don't have anything to do. Not until we start.
I've been telling you're doing a great job. It's when people they're someone who is the only person. It's like I see you. There you go.
This
There it is.
Where, well, let's lower that black one down. Rebecca, yes. Which one was the one for the Zoom people again?
So when, yeah, if they're talking, that's basically the sound coming from the computer.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So
Okay.
if someone has something to say on Zoom, unmute it.
Yes. I just, again, right now, because they're doing this, I don't think it's that big a deal. That's the one I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure. Um, 13, 12. 12 so far. Okay. Yeah. Like a while ago.
I mean, eventually.
Yeah, I swear I saw one like on the ground. I don't know maybe at the time it was
Well, we'll figure it.
yeah.
So I won't use this.
Okay.
I'll go back.
Yeah. That's so weird. Because I swear I saw one too, but again, it could already be attacked. I don't know.
I presume you're recording me.
I think I will report.
I'm Mike Rothman, the rabbi here at the Congregation of Poverty, but Goldsmith is our music director. Shiva is normally a time where we gather in our homes. And if you look around, there's so many people who love you, Beth, Andrea. It wasn't clear we were going to fit in your home. It's like a reunion here. Some people we haven't seen in a while. Some people we've seen recently. We're so grateful that all of you have come to support them as we say goodbye to you. This great happening, also friends. So for right now, and for some of us for always, this is home. And we remember with prayer, with memory, and of course with song. We're going to start with a couple of songs that we would have talked about. Shiva Kamayam, pour out like water, tears, or love, and connection.
And remember, remember,
Psalm 23 is a psalm that accompanies us when we're in the darkest times and in the times of confusion and the times of mud. It's an accompaniment. So we're going to accompany you today. Psalm 23, it's on page 117 and 116. You can follow along in the words, English translation. And we're going to sing a version that's not in your books, but is the meaning of the words here.
She restores my soul. She leads me in her path of good things. Even though I walk through something really bad, there's nothing that can shake me. She has said she won't forsake me. She sets the table in the presence of my foes. She anoints my head with oil. And surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life. The evil is coming.
So even though it is an evening hour, it's still quite light outside. So instead of a Mariv service, we'll be doing a Mincha service, which I think Bev was happy anyway. It's a little shorter. So got a big thumbs up for her. So we're going to start on page 8 with Ashrei 8 and 9. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitel. Oh, yeah, hallelujah. Oh, yeah, hallelujah. Ashrei. Shekah. Ashrei Ham Shadonai Elohim. Exaltations do I raise to you, my sovereign God, declaring praises for your deeds one hour to the next. Heaven's glorious splendor is my son. Susan, we're talking about Kanun Varacho Maranay Archbald. Letting all people know of your mighty acts and of your sovereignty and glory and splendor. So, providing with your open hand, you satisfy desire in all lives. Get on. At the star on page 11, in the third to last line in the transliteration. Tehillah Adonai Yedaber Pi Vayvarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Leolam Vahed Vanachnu Nevarech Ya Me'ata ve'adon. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We rise in body or spirit on pages 42 and 43. The Hatzi Kaddish is going to go into our Amidah on the following pages 44 and 45. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yalmad divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yom ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם עולם מעלמיה. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitalev, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha, arichu, leila, min kol berchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, damiran b'alma, v'imeru. Adonai sifatai tifta ufia gita hilatecha. Open my lips, beloved one, and let my mouth declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah. 47. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chaste Avot v'Imot Umevi Geula Livnei V'Neihem L'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Abraham V'Ezrat Sarah. 49. Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai Rav Lehoshia Morid Hatal Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayei Kol Chai Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umakayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Baal Gevurot Umido Melech Melech Memit Umchayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua
ונאמן אתה להחיות כל חי, ברוך אתה Adonai, מחיי כל חי. The Kedusha on 51. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושיבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כאל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. The rest of this continues silently through page 75. There's the words on the page or the words of your heart. Take your time, and when you're done with your Amidah, let us know by being seated. peace in the heavens, make peace for all of us, for all the people Israel, for all who dwell on for all who dwell on earth, and of course, for you, Bev. And we say Amen. So there's a lot of prayers in that Amidah. There's this one, the 16th prayer, where we ask God to receive our prayers. We say Shema Kolenu, listen to our voices. Kabel barachamim uvratzon et tefilatenu, receive with compassion and with will, with love, our prayers. So it occurs to me that Lee was a person who heard a lot of people, heard with a D, heard, and make sure that she was attuned to people. She was compassionate, and people felt loved in her presence, such to the at the Pride Parade, people felt like, here is a person who loves me, even though I don't necessarily know who she is, but she seems to know me. And with Double, that they were a force. They were quite the force to be reckoned with. I am bummed that I didn't get to know her better. We share the love of the Broadway musical, the Mustang, right? We have the Mustang in common, right? But I still feel, just from what people have said and what you've told me, I feel like I know her. So this is a space that's open for memory. But first, we're going to invite you up to share your memories, and then other folks who newly will invite you to share your memories as well.
It's just incredible to look around this room and see my community, Andrea's, and hers. And so much love for her. It's just, it's really comforting. It really is. And almost all the chorus, my God. Wow. Okay, here we go. I have long believed that when you lose a mother or a father, you either mourn the parent you had or the parent you wish you had. And I was very fortunate to be in the former category. As someone said to me tonight, you won the mother lottery, and I really think I did. Rose Leah Gilman Korfin was born in June of 1932 in Oyster Bay on Long Island, New York, the much-beloved first child of Stella and Charlie Gilman. She lived in a multi-generational home with her parents and her younger brother Saul, as well as her maternal grandmother Bertha, for whom I'm named, and my grandfather's business partners, his brother Ben and cousin Nat, forever known in the family as the boys. She described her childhood experience in Oyster Bay in the 1930s and 40s as mostly idyllic, despite some early incidents of anti-Semitism, which made a formative impact. There were visits to my grandmother's New Jersey and New York City relatives almost every weekend to get away to the country, which is what Long Island was at the time. And just a little personal plug, the only famous, sort of famous person I think we have in our family, her grandmother's brother was Abraham Herman, who ran and was the president of Hias in the 20s and 30s. So my one claim to fame. She had wonderful friends, especially Mary Villani, who called her Gilly. They met in second grade and remained close friends for 85 years. When I had the very difficult task of informing Mary about Mom's death, she described Mom as her best friend, and she was by far not the only one to do so through the years. Mom described being active in all types of school activities, including class officer, yearbook committee, and the school newspaper. A few years ago, Andrea and I went with Mom to Oyster Bay, and Mary organized a lunch for 8 members of the Oyster Bay High School class of 1950. One of them was a man named Ty Gonzalez. He always sat behind Mom in class since the seating was alphabetical. When I was introduced to him, he looked over his shoulder, because his wife was in the room, And he leaned in close and whispered in his thick Long Island accent, "I have always been in love with your mother." The historian Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote a memoir called Wait Until Next Year about her early life in her small Long Island town. Mom loved it and thought the book captured her childhood town as well, especially their shared love of the Brooklyn Dodgers. She sent me a copy of the book filled with Post-it notes recounting the Oyster Bay equivalent of Doris's town. The only synagogue was several towns away and not easy to get to in the 1930s. Despite the lack of formal religious exposure, her parents instilled a very deep, strong connection with their Jewish heritage, identity, spirit, and culture that lasted throughout her life and that she passed on to me. She was always thrilled to come here to CBH and loved the strong Jewish community we had. She loved so many of you in this room, and just, seeing you and seeing the connection you had is so heartwarming to me. And also those on Zoom. There are some of our community here. There are family members, friends of mine and hers throughout our lives. So thank you all for being here on Zoom. In the summer before her senior year, her father pursued a business opportunity and also concerned that there were no prospects for a Jewish boy that Mom would want to marry in Oyster Bay, moved the family to Union, New Jersey. While she described leaving her lifelong schoolmates as one of the most difficult experiences of her life, it was also a besheret, meant-to-be moment, because in October of that year, she met a handsome, charismatic, charming guy named Lee Korfin at a dance at the Elizabeth, New Jersey YMHA, and the rest, as they say, was history. They quickly began dating, and with my father came lifelong friends, including Milton Phyllis Perkle and Morty and Norma Goldberg, who remained close friends throughout her life. Andrew and I still talk with Phyllis and Milt on the first of every month. He's my closest connection to my dad, besides my aunt and uncle. One of the greatest gifts both of my parents gave me was how to cultivate and maintain rich long-term friendships. And I'm very grateful for that. The six friends hung out together in the early 1950s, the era of poodle skirts and big bands, and traveled often into New York City to see Benny Goodman and Frank Sinatra, Rosemary Clooney and Patti Page, and to the Catskill Mountain resorts to enjoy the Borscht Belt comedians. She describes it as an innocent, fun time in my life. Sadly and ironically, Morty passed away about a month ago. And as I was getting out of the car at the cemetery last Thursday to bury Mom, I got a call from Milt that Phyllis had died in her sleep the night before. The three of them have joined my dad in the Catskills in the sky and are waiting for Milt and Norma to show up. Lee and Al were married in 1953 at the ages of 20 and 21. I was born 11 months later. When I asked her, "Why did you have a baby so soon and so young?" her classic answer was, "We were two stupid kids who didn't know what we were doing." David followed 3 years later and Steve 3 years after that. During our early childhood, we lived in 3 different towns in central New Jersey. One of my favorite childhood memories, now, not necessarily then, was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was 7 and very worried about the Russians. When I couldn't sleep one night because of my fears, my very practical mother's response, which would not win many points from a child psychologist, was, "Go to sleep, the Russians aren't coming to New Jersey." Right? Mom loved cars, the flashier the better. We, of course, had the obligatory pre-minivan station wagon. We would take family car trips, and the 3 of us would sleep on the return part of the trip with pillows and blankets in what we called the way back of the car. long before this came to be regarded as illegal child endangerment. And we also had a second, yeah, you too, Josh, yeah. And we also had a second car that she always picked out. Highlights were one of the very first 1965 Mustangs in gold, followed by two AMC Javelins in bright orange and near fluorescent yellow. No telling what she would have picked out if the budget had allowed. Her second to last car was a Scion smart car, which my cousin Sherry dubbed the tuna can. She once picked Andrea and me up at the airport in the tuna can. With the three of us in the car, along with our luggage, there was about 3 cubic inches of space left. She was never a great driver, and Andrea and I both held our breath as she pulled out of the airport on a rainy South Florida day and merged onto the highway amidst the tractor trailers. We were all relieved when the lease expired and she got a Toyota Camry, which she pronounced boring. In 1967, we moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where my father accepted a new job. The family's time in Allentown was mostly wonderful, with all of us still maintaining friendships and great memories from those years. Our house was a gathering place for my, David, and Steve's friends. Several of my brother's friends recalled Mom very fondly, saying that the food at the Korfin's house was always the best. Both of my parents were active in our synagogue, and Mom was a member of Hadassah and Ort and volunteered at the JCC as we were growing up. After my father had a heart attack and triple bypass surgery at the age of 41, they moved to South Florida in 1974, where she remained, and my brother Steve and his family have lived ever since. When she was only 57, she experienced the greatest tragedy of her life. Her husband of 37 years died of esophageal cancer after a very difficult 2-year illness. As many women of that generation, Mom had no real experience in being on her own. She had attended a semester of college and worked as a medical assistant before she quit to get married and work with my father in his early restaurants. She went from living with and having most decisions made for her by her father to the same with her husband in their very typical 50-0 marriage. After a 3-year period of darkness and grief after Dad's death, a remarkable thing slowly began to happen. She showed a resilience that had never really been a part of who she had been, and she began to forge an independent life. She slowly began to emerge as a very different person, gradually gaining strength and independence and finding herself and her own sense of being. She had become working when I was in high school, despite my father's initial lack of support and encouragement. She forged ahead anyway. She started working at a bank, and she continued in her banking career and earned increasing positions of responsibility and developed a new sense of confidence. When she was once asked if she ever wanted to get remarried, the new Lee responded that she never again wanted anybody telling her what to do. When she retired, her main goal was to learn how to use a computer. She quickly mastered it and went on to be an active member of the computer club at her retirement community, serving as a tutor and as the treasurer. And for 20 years, until she gave up driving, she pursued her second retirement goal as a regular usher at the Broward Performing Arts Center and saw every Broadway touring company she could. I tell people that I'm a second-generation usher in my gig here at the Fox. Much to my delight, Mom was an outspoken liberal Democrat and an MSNBC devotee. She was an avid reader and loved to go to the Miami Book Festival every year. One night in 2004, she called me on her way home and spoke for 10 straight minutes, barely taking a breath, in her excitement over an unknown politician she had seen speak about his book. She predicted great things ahead for Barack Obama. Mom and I often watched the same TV shows over the years, going back to 30-something and St. Elsewhere in the 80s, through This Is Us and Grey's Anatomy, and many more. She especially loved all things crime and serial killer. Once when she was visiting, we decided to go see a movie. She recommended a serial killer movie called Copycat. As the credits rolled, Andrew leaned over to me and whispered, she never gets to pick a movie ever again. She loved basketball and was a big Miami Heat fan. She and my dad had season tickets for the first few seasons. She would watch the Heat playoff games and she would play along, cheering or stressing over each shot. In 1993, I threw her a bit of a curveball when I told her that I had entered a very serious relationship. The good news, I told her, was that the person was Jewish. The new and different thing was that he was a she. Initially, Mom had reservations. She asked me if I had tried hard enough to meet someone. I assured her at the age of 39, after 25 years of dating, that really was not the issue. But of course, it did not take long for Andrea to totally win her over and become a much beloved daughter-in-law. Mom went on to be a gay rights supporter, joining HRC and even writing letters to politicians from time to time. A highlight was her participation in 3 Atlanta Pride parades. She was a major crowd favorite when she rode on the back of a convertible with her beloved and our beloved Sylvia Doublegross. They were quite the pair. They're both holding signs that say, "Jewish mothers with pride." Then there was the time she sat with Sylvia on Peachtree Street watching the parade. These two irrepressible octogenarians became great friends and chatted throughout the parade with 2 African-American drag queens sitting next to them. When we marched by in the parade, they were clearly all having a great time. Mom had a tremendous love of her family and showed my brothers and me near unconditional love and support. Of course, there were requisite doses of Jewish guilt thrown in from time to time, especially in my early years. When I was on my summer trip to Europe after my junior year in college, I told my parents that I wanted to drop out of school and go to Israel and live on a kibbutz. The guilt that she sent was a palpable wave that rolled across the ocean from North Miami Beach directly to the phone booth at the American Express office in Rome. I folded like a house of cards and came home. As we became adults and made our way into the world, she delighted in our career and personal achievements and ultimately supported our life choices. She was extremely supportive of her grandchildren, Allie, Lisa, Allie, yes, 2 Allies, Zach and Katie, and could always be counted on to encourage them to take risks and take chances, whether that meant Allie going across the country to attend college in Oregon, Lisa traveling to exotic places around the world, or the younger Allie leaving South Florida after college to live for a few years in New York. All important growth experiences for the 3 of them. When she became a grandmother, rather than choose a more neutral grandmother name, she went retro Yiddish and wanted to be called Booby, which later sometimes morphed into Boob or Boobs or the Boobster. It was a title she loved most in her life. Even the young woman who cleaned her apartment in her independent living place called her Booby, as did all of my brothers and his children's friends in Florida, which I didn't know until last week. Her 4 great-grandchildren, Ethan, Emma, Ellie, and Riley, brought her unparalleled joy and were, of course, the most beautiful, fantastic, and smartest children ever. When the 3 of them in Houston learned to call her Booby and told their mom, Allie, they wanted to FaceTime with her, she was over the moon. She made very proactive life decisions, deciding to leave the condo she had shared with my father and move to a retirement community, Century Village, where she was involved in all kinds of activities, the computer club, theater, ballet, Kabbalah classes, and concerts. Neil Diamond was her favorite. In 2015, she called me and said she was ready to leave the condo and make the move to independent living. She called it the next level of easy. Never one to enjoy cooking, something else that she passed on to me. She was eager to have someone else do it for her. Andrea and I bought her a sign to hang over what she called her virgin oven. I swear to God she never used it. That read, "I understand the concept of cooking and cleaning, just not as it applies to me." At that time, she gave up her car, which frankly was a relief to the entire family. She loved living at the independent living community, participating fully in the classes, lectures, rummy cue games, and excursions. She became a new resident ambassador and was elected to the resident council. She quickly became a resident favorite. Everyone knew Lee. I referred to her as the mayor of Five Star of Hollywood. Our childhood friends from New Jersey and Allentown all have very fond memories of both of our parents. Mom became an integral part of Andrew's and my Atlanta family of friends. So many of you in this room, serving as a second substitute mom to many of those who either had lost their mothers or those who had had challenging relationships with theirs. For 20 years, she was a regular at our high holiday services. When she added Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah, we started calling it her annual High Holiday Palooza. She loved coming each year, and as I said, was a favorite of our CBH friends and acquaintances. They commented in recent days how much they loved seeing her with her huge smile and warm hugs. One year when Rabbi Josh saw her, he gave her a hug and said, "Now I can start the service." Her joy and exuberance for life and her kindness were wonderful things. She hardly ever had anything negative to say about anyone, with the notable exception of a certain ex-president who shall not be named. Ex-president and, oh, shall we say, felon? I swear, we were watching the verdicts being announced, and I put my hand up, and I felt this. I swear to God, I did. She always had many friends and was very approachable, and her outgoing, loving, warm spirit, huge smile made her very popular in whatever circles she traveled in. Mom loved food, and anybody who knows her knows that her appetite was legendary. Eating was her superpower. She was always the first in any buffet line. For about the last 15 years, she would say, "I can't eat the way I used to," shortly before she went in for seconds or thirds. And everyone knew better than to get between Lee and her dessert. She made a point of reminding people that when it came to desserts, she did not share. She once ordered bananas Foster for 2 and glared at and reprimanded the waiter when he had the audacity to bring extra spoons for the rest of the table. Wherever she is somewhat annoyed not to be here to schmooze with everyone in the room and on Zoom and lead the way to the desserts in the other room. She was always up for something new and adventurous, and Andrew and I took her whitewater rafting in her 70s and ziplining and hot air ballooning at 80. My brothers thought we were crazy. We vetoed a Segway tour given her tendency toward klutziness. Hang gliding was a hard no. And speaking of klutziness, it was a well-known Lee Korfin lifelong trademark. She would say to me, "I'm not exactly a gazelle." And I would respond, "No, Mom, not even close." So many trips and falls without injury over the years, I often thought she had bones of titanium. The saying goes that a cat has 9 lives. We refer to Mom as the cat with 147 lives. Her last several years featured multiple falls and stumbles, all of which she recovered from. Broken shoulder, she's back. Broken hip, 16 staples to close a huge cut on her head, several other head bumps and black eyes, gallstones, pancreatitis, she's back. But finally, those cat lives were used up. 5 days before her 91st birthday, everything changed when my brother David died suddenly and tragically. She began to decline, and the last several months were just too difficult and became too much of a fight. I have just lost an unbelievable mother, my biggest champion, an unconditional supporter, which will be a huge adjustment. But while I am devastated by her loss, I am also comforted by the fact she is no longer struggling. that brings me a huge, huge measure of peace. I am not sure about what I really believe about an afterlife. That said, I have long had this pleasant fantasy about what happens when we die. Our family members and friends are in heaven or some other place, and this is the crazy part, and they each have their own residence, and each residence has a screen that lights up with the name of the person they know who will be arriving the next day. They all gather in folding lawn chairs. That's important. By the entrance at the appointed time to eagerly greet the new arrival. Mom was just greeted by my dad, her son, her parents, her brother, all of her aunts and uncles, cousins, and dear friends. And they were so, so very overjoyed to see her. Zikron livracha, may her memory be a blessing. It already is.
Amen. So what you're saying is she's looking down on us with 34 reasons to be happy. Absolutely. So beautiful. Thank you. Are there other folks? We've got a microphone here. You can come on up if you're not feeling up to it. Well, there's Michael Gross, so I should have known. Come on up, Mike. And we will also make some space for folks on Zoom to share memories if they've got them.
I'll make this very quick.
Who also, by the way, Michael flew down before last week for the funeral.
Lee was an amazing person, as we all know and have heard. Bev spoke beautifully, and 24, 25 years ago, Bev called one day and said, "My mom's coming to Atlanta. Do you want to get together and get your mom?" And I'm like, okay. My mom was never a girlfriend person. She didn't play cards. She didn't do things like that with other women. And they developed a very quick friendship. We have some of our most favorite memories of brunch at the house and dinner at someone's house. And we sort of fought over, could we get her on Tuesday, or was it going to be on Friday, and blah, blah, blah. But I had an opportunity to emulate someone in the community by representing CBH at the funeral. And I remember years ago when Andrea lost her mom, Peter flew down to be with them. And I always thought that was probably one of the menschiest things that I had ever heard. And I wanted to emulate that. And it gave me great joy to be with you and to meet the kids and the family. And it was just it ended up being a great day. I left Florida with a full heart, a sad full heart. But anyway, so, I lost it. Let me get it real quick. Lee was at our wedding 10 years ago. And as we said, she touched a lot of people's lives. I can't believe I lost this. Get it. She touched a lot of people's lives. She was sort of the hit. And after the wedding, one of my neighbors, who happened to be sitting next to her, came running over to the house with her 2 kids, and she said, "You have got to tell me who that lady was." And I said, "What lady?" And she said, "The lady." And I said, "What lady?" And she started this.
Wife would be circling the husband 7 times, but in this case, they're both doing it so that Michael and Brian, they can circle each other. Did you know that I bought this watch on a Groupon deal? I did. I bought it on a Groupon deal. I love those watches. I like your watch. That's nice. Thank you for sitting by me. It's nice to have these young people here.
That was Lee.
So like many of us, I've known Lee for almost 25 years or so. How long y'all been married?
so a long time. And she touched many of our hearts, and I'll always think of Lee as joy. That was the one thing I think of Lee as joy. There are many other stories we can talk about. So we had a very good long-distance friendship. We went to her 80th birthday party in Miami. We were at her house after Andrea's mother's funeral. And of course, we saw a lot of her in Atlanta. All the high holidays and the major holidays like Thanksgiving and Passover. And those are major holidays because there was a lot of food. She did have Passover one year at Seder at our house. She told people that one of her favorite desserts was my lemon squares. So I told Bev I would make lemon squares in memory and loving memory of her mother. So over the years, I've learned to bake a day ahead in case something doesn't come out right. So yesterday morning, I have the lemon squares in the oven, 10 minutes into a 25-minute bake, and the electricity goes out. Georgia Power said, oh, it'll be about 2 hours. So we made them today again because we loved Lee so much, and we love Andrea and Bev, you know. And one other thing, your mothers will always be in your heart, and your two mothers touched my heart. So.
I'm just one of the members of the congregation. I couldn't help but see Lee now and then. And in particular, I remember her in Purim on Ponce. And there was a particular time when Bev and Andrea and Lee came as the three little pigs. The three little kosher pigs. Gotta put that in. They wouldn't have done it if they weren't kosher. Yeah. And, you know, it was that playfulness and sense of humor and her love of you guys and her love of us that I keep with me. And I thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Can I say something here? Because I don't want to go over there.
We'll bring you a mic so they can hear you on Zoom. Sorry.
Well,
Thank you. Like everybody else, I met Lee when she came to the high holidays here. And of course, loved her immediately as I do Bev and Andrea. But I introduced Lee to my mother, who also came for the high holidays. And with many things in common, they became fast friends. And when my mom was down in Florida, she'd get together with Lee, and they would each call Bev and call me and tell us they had this great play date. And here are these almost 90-year-old women who would call their daughters saying they had a play date. And that's just the energy and the love and the life that Lee brought to everything. So thank you for sharing her with us.
we're good on height.
That's okay. Hey, sweetheart. Both of you. So it's 1993, and this congregation is 8 years old. And we have a treasurer who works in Douglasville, so the dues checks never make it to the bank because we're banking in little 5 points at the credit union. And me, being the obsessive nut that I am getting angry because I will write a dues check and I can't balance my checkbook for 90 days because the damn checks are not going. So here we are at Saul Carliner's place, not his house, but that place he lived in, the rec room. And I stick my hand up, yes, I will be the treasurer. So from 93 to 96, I served 3 years as the treasurer. And so I got to see the synagogue start where maybe $10,000 a year passed through our hands, to a point where we started with our first visiting rabbi, and opening the doors without requiring tickets to be purchased for the High Holy Days. And all of a sudden, we're getting all of these in-town non-gay families that have not found a synagogue that was to their liking. So I'm getting to meet all these people. And within about 2 years, and with the fundraising and all these new members, we've got a Sunday school, right? And I'm arguing at the board meetings with Sue Levy, one of my good friends. And we've got enough money in the bank. We have 12 months of operating in the bank. And I'm told that that's absolutely outlandish for any congregation. I learned so many things. Our insurance company was called Church Mutual, by the way. Some place up in Wisconsin that specializes in insuring congregations. And anyway. So every month I got to come up with this spreadsheet of how much money came in and what are we doing with it. And we didn't have that much to spend it on, you know. And so here's the High Holy Days, and I'm getting these checks in the post office box. And here's one from somebody I never heard of, Lee Korfin, okay? And I said, oh, I've never met Beverly's father. Right? And so I said, well, we got a check from your dad. And she says,
It's a miracle.
I know. So I said, well, Lee Korfin, your brother? She said, no, that's my mom's name. I said, oh, I didn't know that. So I couldn't wait for her to come where I could actually get to meet her. And as I said, that was in the early days. We didn't have 4 different, we didn't have the people who come to services constituency and the people who bring their kids to school constituency. Everybody showed up every Shabbos at 8 o'clock for services. But now I was meeting all these people in these High Holy Days, and I got to start meeting the moms, right? Frida and Roz and Sylvia, and that's when it started feeling like a real shul to me, it was when it got multi-generational, when it was like the shul I grew up in. It was the shul that you were glad to go to, and it wasn't just our little baby boomer ghetto. It was, by that time, we had old folks, we had Zev, we were the old folks. And we had the kids, right? One of the kids in our Sunday school is now married to a United States Senator, am I right?
That's right.
And when I remember, I guess, Carol, you'll remember, it was someplace out in way deep Gwinnett County, and I met your mom, remember? And you introduced me to your mom, and I said, I was wondering who this Alta Kaka was. And she gets all offended, and you said, no, that's just Bob. And as I said, when I met the moms and their graciousness and their loveliness, that's when it started to feel like an actual, like the place I grew up in, like the shul I grew up in. It was back then.
Anyone? Yeah, folks on Zoom. And Emily, who is doing such an expert job in the back, you can unmute folks?
They should be able to unmute themselves.
Okay, so if anyone's on Zoom, let's see, can you see me? I'll come over here. Anyone's on Zoom who has a memory of Lee, would like to unmute themselves, I invite you to do so.
Hi there. I would like to share a memory. This is Elisa, and I have to say that Andrea, I guess it actually is 30 years. I came to Temple for the first time, and the first people that I met at Temple were Andrea and Bev 30 years ago. And I just moved from South Florida, and with my partner at the time, and they just welcomed us. And your mom pretty much has been a part of, my life for 30 years and always coming to services and having dinner together. And like Bob said, it felt like family. And every time I saw your mom, I always had a big smile on my face. And your mom was so excited to meet my triplets when I had them and to see them grow up. And for you guys, being there at their B'nai Mitzvah. And every time I think of your mom, I just have such a huge smile on my face. And I loved that she loved us and our synagogue and was just so open and accepting of us. Just meant so much to me, and so much to my children. And she was amazing, amazing woman, and I will truly miss her. I love you guys.
Thanks, Elisa. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Mark Lindenberg, and this is my wife, Sherry. I am Lee's nephew by marriage, although that is a distinction without a difference because she was every bit my aunt. I've been around a long time in this family. I met Lee probably either sometime in 1980 or 1981. Sherry and I started dating in 1980. Sherry's parents, Lee's brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they had moved from South Florida, where we live, to California. And Sherry would spend time at Lee and Alvin's house. She'd spend breaks in summers when at the time she could not travel to California. So Lee and Alvin were the surrogate parents that I came to know as our relationship developed. Lee was warm and accepting as you all know her. She defined the word ally because before that term was applicable to the scenario. She was the most lovely, accepting, goofy, but very bright woman that you would ever want to meet. So the story that I want to come to is unrelated. It riffs back to Lee's love of food. And it goes back to a summer that Sherry spent at Alvin and Lee's house. And this was just at the beginning of the point of our relationship where Sherry felt comfortable that she would spend some time at my family home as well. At that point, Sherry was baking cookies. She baked cookies like Mrs. Fields cookies. She baked cookies very well, that to a point where she could sell these cookies as a second job, and she made the cookies. She made the cookies in Alvin and Lee's house.
Small apartment.
A small apartment in Aventura. She made a whole lot of them. And Alvin had a poke day that he would serve all kinds of food and snacks. And Sherry was coming over to my house. And both Lee and Alvin independently said, you have to take those cookies with you. You can't leave those cookies here. We can't be trusted with these cookies.
And there was like 100 cookies.
About 100 cookies. So Sherry was the niece, dutiful niece, but she didn't grow up. She didn't realize that that's not really what they meant. So she schleps this tray of 100 cookies out of the apartment, leaving the apartment smelling like you're inside a Mrs. Fields bakery. We get a call about 9:00 that night from Lee Korfin screaming into the phone, where the hell are the cookies? They literally forensically turned the apartment upside down. There had been multiple secret stashes
Of the poker good chocolates
of
and
the poker
snacks.
of the poker stack and the M&Ms, and neither of them. So they would all independently hide from the other spouse in these various nooks and crannies of this very small apartment. And I, to this day, still remember that phone call where Sherry says, "What do you mean, where are these cookies? You told me to take the cookies." And they didn't speak to Sherry for about a week after that. The postscript to that story is my parents, Rose and Leo, said, "You can't leave these cookies here. You have to take the cookies back to Alvin and Lee's house." And my father, may he rest in peace, he tore the house upside down too. But
the people in my office were very happy.
Yes. And I was one of the persons that got the spoon handed to them.
It says mute.
He ordered the bananas Foster.
When you start putting your picture up there, go ahead.
I'm Al's brother, and I know Lee longer than anyone. I remember Lee when I was just, I don't know, 8, 9 years old when she first came into the family. And we have a long history. After my mother died, I actually lived with Al and Lee.
Part of that long history was of destroying things like melting
Yeah.
transistor radios,
Smashing my car up by backing into it. But we loved her. She was one. And I remember spending the last days with Alvin. And we got to see Lee a few weeks ago when we were in Florida for my son-in-law Mark's mother's 100th birthday. So I have a nice memory of Lee. At least she was talking to me. But like I say, I know her longer than anybody in that entire group. And it's sad. Love you all.
Well, since Mark told my story, I just had one other thing that I wanted to share. When I was living with Alvin and Lee, and I would hear some of the normal fights that go on between, husband and wife, and the typical bickering. And she would be going for snacks and eating in those seconds or third portions. And his famous words to her were, "Lee, even a train stops." Somebody said, so when we were at the funeral, somebody said, "What do you think Al's going to say when he sees Lee in heaven?" Well, the train stopped.
So, Bev and Andrea from Washington, D.C., 34 claps today. Just want to say that I have a wonderful memory of Lee. You and I, Bev, were in college, I think, and I came to Allentown for the Allentown State Fair. And we were listening to Pink Floyd and doing something that was now legal and at the time was probably pretty illegal. Getting a little bit high. And your mom, you could smell the fried chicken that she was making, talking about food. And you're like, "Okay, we got to go downstairs to eat." Okay, fine. So we go downstairs, and I was so enamored with everything. Your mom said, "Do you want a breast or a thigh?" And I said, "Yes, please." And your mom was so kind. She didn't miss a beat. She said, "Okay," and gave me the two. Bless her.
Well, can you hear me? Well, there I am. My first introduction to Lee was at Al's 50th birthday party. And I was sitting at a table with Aunt Helen and Belle. And I didn't know any of the family. I was in a relationship with their son, David. And Helen lifts up her shirt and parades around with her boobs hanging out. Now, I'm new in this area, and I'm thinking, what the heck? So I go to the bathroom, crying my eyes out and thinking, I don't know if I can be in this family. And Lee, bless her heart, comes to the bathroom and says to me, don't listen to her. This is how she is. She likes to get the attention. Please don't let it get in the way of anything. So that was my first introduction to Lee. But Lee, she was such a wonderful lady. I remember visiting them in their condo in Aventura, and they had this cork board in the one room. It had all the kids' pictures all over it. And she was always so proud of her kids going over each picture with me, at least 10 times for each picture. And every time I would come, she'd do the same thing. I would pretend I didn't remember, but she was just so proud of her kids. But not only was she a great mother, she was a great grandmother. She, Al and Lee, when it was my daughter Allie's birthday or any events, they come, they babysit, they had the best time in the world. And from that, my daughter developed a great relationship with Lee. It was really very special. Lee and I, when she would come to visit in Houston, we'd go to the movies, we'd go shopping, we'd kind of hang out. When she was into her knitting, she got me into knitting. Of course, I didn't last too long. I wasn't very good. But she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. I can't say enough good things about her. She was great, and she will be severely missed.
Rabbi, I'd like to say something for Bev. And yeah, I'd like to say something for Bev and Andrea. So I never met Lee, but like a couple of others here on Zoom and maybe in the room, we're here for Andrea and Bev. Bev started her remarks by saying that she won the mom lottery. And I feel the same way in my own family. And I just feel like having listened to everything this evening and particularly to Bev talk about the sort of second, perhaps, iteration or the later in life iteration of her mom when she showed such great resilience and an ability to kind of reinvent herself and find herself, and in the various ways that both the young sort of Jewishly connected Lee and then the later in life sort of reborn experimental Lee, I can see all of that in Bev. And I can see it in Andrea as well. And it's just so powerful, the positive ways that we reflect our parents. Bev has been a really important person in the Jewish life of me and of my family. And, I have the fortune or misfortune at the moment of being the president of the board of this congregation. And I really wish I'd been able to make it out the door to be with you in person tonight, which didn't quite happen. But it's not an accident, Bev, that you have almost the whole chorus there and that you have the room full and that you have 2 screens on Zoom. The both of you are just tremendously important people in this congregation. And it just seems like an exact match who you are in the congregation to the family that you have gathered. It's totally consistent, and we are all just so lucky to have you. And on behalf of the entire congregation and anyone who didn't make it on the screen or in person, the entire CBH loves you and is with you tonight and in this time in your life.
Thanks, Peter. We're going to invite Brad to come on up. Turn to page 135. 136, you'll see El Malei Rachamim, our memorial prayer. I invite you to rise in body or spirit, as well as those folks who are online. You can rise as well where you are.
El Malei Rachamim שוכנה במרומים. המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת רחליה בת סטלה בת שרי יקירנו קדושנו שלחה לעולם הנבל הרחמים הסתירם בצל כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני ונחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר
El Malay Rachamim, God full of compassion, who dwells in the highest of high places, grant full rest under the wings of Shekhinah, your sheltering presence, in the heights of the holy and pure, who shine like the brightness of heaven, to the soul of Rachalea, Bat Stella Vacharli, to Lee Korfin, who has gone to her eternity. Merciful One, protect her under your wings forever and bind her soul in the bonds of eternal life. Adonai, the compassionate one, is her inheritance. May she always rest in her resting place in peace. We say amen. I'm going to invite you to be seated. This is a short poem from my teacher, Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg. Make me a nursing tree. When I get old and die, let my bark decay in the wet earth, and let huckleberries, bright green heart-shaped leaves, and iridescent moss grow to cover me. Then let new saplings sprout in the thick, dank soil, full of hopeful, tender shoots. Let me be fertile in ideas, in offspring, remembered for my kindness and generosity, remembered for humor and courage, and for not complaining too much, for not hating anyone. I invite you to rise in body or spirit, page 89. 88 and 89 is Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shenatan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. 91. V'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. From Martin Buber, when senseless hatred reigns on earth and people hide their faces from one another, then heaven is forced to hide its face. But when love comes to rule this earth and people reveal their faces to one another, then the splendor of God will finally be revealed. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד. may be seated.
Lee was my second mother for 31 years, and I loved her very much. I'm going to read a poem, and just be with it. Speak of me as you have always done. Remember the good times, laughter, and fun. Share the happy memories we've made. Do not let them wither or fade. I'll be with you in the summer sun, and when the winter's chill has come. I'll be the voice that whispers in the breeze. I'm peaceful now. Put your mind at ease. I've rested my eyes and gone to sleep, but memories we've shared are yours to keep. Sometimes our final days may be a test. Sorry.
Take your time.
But remember me when I was at my best. Although things may not be the same, don't be afraid to use my name. Let your sorrow last for just a while. Comfort each other and try to smile. I've lived a life filled with joy and fun. Live on now. Make me proud of what you'll become.
We're going to conclude after Kaddish with Hamakom. It's a beautiful song that Rebecca's introduced, I think, to this community. We talk about Shiva as being a little confusing because we've got all these people and there's going to be dessert, right? Don't stop the train, right? But there is a custom that the soul of our dead loved one is with us in a Shiva house, whether it's a house, your personal home, or the house of friends that you are surrounded by right now. So grateful to this community for showing up so powerfully. There's pictures, there's stories to be told. We didn't exhaust them, of course, at all. Let's keep talking about Lee. May it be that the Kaddish that we're about to say and our memories help lift up her soul to Olam Haba, to the world to come, in whatever concept we have of it, whether there's bright lights or lawn chairs. Yeah, we'll talk about the lawn chairs. So I invite those who are in mourning to rise for Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Yatom on 103. If you're not familiar with our custom here at Beit Havarim, when we get to the fourth line, where in the 102 where it says congregation, the entire community is invited to rise in support of Bev and Andrea, those who are in mourning and those who die every day of this awful war, of war in general, of hate, of hunger, of abuse, neglect. Those killed Al Kadosh Hashem for the sanctification of God's name amongst the Jewish people. 102, 103, Kaddish Yatom. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah. Bi'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechal Beit Yisrael. Bagalah v'zman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Ulamei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitalev V'yithalal Shmei Dekudesha Barichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbachata V'nechamata Damiran B'alma V'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. Zecher Tzadik Livracha from Proverbs, the memory of the righteous is always for a blessing. We say Amen. Invite you to be seated, and after Hamakom, if you would be so kind as to help us return the Sidurim, the prayer books, to the purple table by the door.
you find comfort. May you find comfort in love. May you find comfort. May you find comfort. May you find comfort in love. Hamakom Yinachem etchem betoch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. Hamakom Yinachem etchem Yenachem 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 etchem.
He's Brian's a new alto, oddly enough. You wouldn't look at you wouldn't.
Bobby,